Welcome back, everyone, to our number 2 of BYP with Q. Rich Quinones here as we continue the NFL conversation, a post-mortem on the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Lloyd Vance kind enough to join us. I'm still not going to say they're cooked. Maybe they're marinating, but not so much cooked. We'll see in a couple of weeks. All right, my friend, week 1 in the books. Let's start with the other team in New York my goodness. I had to watch that crap and garbage the other night, and my phone was nonstop. I at halftime I said, "This game's over." I mean, the Giants go out, and we've talked about this. All the buildup with the Jets, the same crap and nonsense can be said about the Giants. All I heard in the offense was the revamped offensive line. Daniel Jones, pay the man $160. Saquon back at camp. You get Waller, you get Hyatt. Here comes Shepard and Robinson, and here we go, Bellinger. You got weapons galore, and they go out, and they not only lose a frigging game to open up the season at home, but they don't even show up. It was the most non-competitive effort I've seen from my New York Football Giants in a long time. And I'll tell you how bad it gets, and you can appreciate this. You've got that opening drive, and they're going right down the field. Now, mind you, it was Daniel Jones's legs running. It wasn't so much the offense was really moving. They were just some breakdowns by the Cowboys, Saquon, Daniel Jones. And it reminded me from a couple years ago where Eric Flowers, the friggin' bust of all busts for the Giants, got a holding penalty. It backs him up. Eli turns the ball over. Like at that moment, it set the tone for the season, right? The other night, they go right down the field, 3rd and 3. Andrew Thomas, who has not had one false friggin' start penalty all of last year, decides here's the time, the All-Pro, to get one. Bad snap after 3rd and 5, long field goal block. There you go, 7-0. In essence, a 14-point swing, mind you. And then, of course, which really shouldn't have been a pick six. It should have been a fumble off Saquon. Another touchdown, boom, you blink, it's 16-0. The game was friggin' over. It just snowballed from there, but Jesus God, man, can you friggin' put up a fight? If you're all the crap, all the talk I heard about the equity built up in the fan base and the feel good and the winning these games, they did not even show up. And you saw players quitting. What do you take away from this game? Was it just one of those games where everything snowballed? Are the Giants that bad? Or are the Cowboys and their defense just that good?
Yeah, Q, I have to say they got their number. The Cowboys have their number. I think they've
Right.
won 12 of the last 13. They played 5 in a row, something like that. And it's like, man, what is going on here with the Giants? And I said that was my upset special. Boy, was I wrong on that one. And I just thought after that playoff win that they had, and they had some momentum going into the season, that they said enough's enough, and they were ready to ball their fists up and beat up a Dallas team that we talked about. They're kind of a bully. They're good on paper, but in those tough type games, they kind of fall apart. But they just never gave the Giants an opportunity to really throw a punch, as you were saying. After that blocked field goal, it was just all downhill. It was 16-0 before a blink of an eye. And then it's 26-0 at the half. And Daniel Jones is just harassed over and over again. He got sacked 7 times in this game. Micah Parsons and Jonathan Hankins and that defensive line was just all over him, and he couldn't breathe. And Saquon, you talked about his struggles. That was it a fumble, whatever it was, that turnover that was caused, and he just could not get on track. And you talk about you don't want to make season-long assumptions based on week 1, but man, that was a horrible effort. The worst.
That's a tone setter, though.
Loss. Yeah, they got to come back for that.
That's a tone setter because, first of all, if you go back to the game against the Eagles in the playoffs and this game, they've looked horrible over the last 2 games. And by the way, for all the accolades that we give Brian Daboll and talk about him and, going for the win on the road against Tennessee and the moxie and going for it on 4th down and playing, coaching these guys up. What the hell are you doing in a friggin' 40-0 game? And you have your franchise quarterback your $160 million freaking quarterback in the rain, mucking it up on that field, getting his ass and his bell rung every single other play. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then I got to listen. No disrespect to Collins. Well, Daniel Jones he's gutting it out. He's what? He's already won the respect of his teammates. Now I got to get my ass handed to me even more, or I might get concussed, or I might get hurt. What is, and his answer afterwards, Dable, it just perplexed me, man. Andrew Thomas bangs up his hamstring. He might not be available against Arizona. You can't lose him long term with that offensive line. But to have your quarterback still out there in a game that was over at the half, I mean, I get optics.
Yeah.
But 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes left. What are you doing?
You got to live to fight another day. And we talk over and over again. Don't get too caught up in week one. It's a 17-game marathon, and there's just many more games to play. But that's just not a smart decision by Dable. I would have got him out of there as well as a lot of the other starters, and just kind of rested them and said, you know what, we're going to chalk it up as, look, no one's really playing in the preseason anymore, and you're going to see some of these struggles in week one because these guys are just kind of sitting around at the camps aren't what they used to be. Yeah. And they just aren't ready to play. And that's really what I kind of attributed this Giants team. They were not ready to play. You hope they are able to pick it up in terms of there's no place to go but up, because Dallas humiliated him. And
can you score?
And we always talk about Dallas. When they're up, right, man, they're really up. They're high as the sky, and these guys are jumping around, yucking it up, laughing. They're the kings of the world, and I think they'll still have their moments where they struggle, but they really just took it to the Giants. And the Giants, if they have any gumption, if they have any guts, they will step off the mat, because right now that was not a good look. And they just got destroyed out there.
0-2 if they lose to Arizona, who will, by the way, had, I think, 5 or 6 sacks in that game. So Giants 0-1, must win week 2. I don't have a problem saying it. Dallas 1-0. Washington and the Eagles got the win. I didn't think the Eagles looked particularly sharp. And I think I undervalued the Patriots defense, and Mac Jones made some plays. I mean, obviously they kept that game close. They had an opportunity to win the game after the Hurts fumble late. But this, in the NFL, a win is a win. Now, I think it's going to be tough for Bradbury, who's in concussion protocol, to pass those tests with Thursday night looming against Minnesota. I think the one thing that kind of stood out for me with the Philadelphia Eagles, man, I'll tell you, they can't run the football. And if they can't run the football, that's going to be an issue for them this year, because everything opens up, right? The play action Hurts, what he does best. Everything comes from the running on the football. And you look at their depth chart, right? You have Gainwell, you have Swift, and you have Penny. Penny wasn't even dressed. So what's the point of even making a move for a veteran if you're not even going to dress him? You're talking about a veteran guy that's not dressed in week 1, taking up a roster spot. What the hell did you even make the move for? And Gainwell is a okay back. He's not a very good back. And I think the Eagles have told you, we believe he's our best back. And if that's the case, they might have a hard time running the football this year.
It was very surprising, the way they went about attacking the New England Patriots. I don't know if it was Belichick and his genius. He's always drawing up the defense, working with his son Steve to kind of stop the offenses. But I think that the Eagles, once they got that 16-point lead, and they had the big play by Slay to pick 6, they kind of rested on their laurels. Up 16-0 going into the second quarter. And then they allowed the Patriots to get right back in the game at half. It's 16-14. And when I look at Hurts, he's another guy. That Sirianni kind of admitted it in his press conference, that they needed reps in training camp as well as these preseason games, because he just looked rusty to me. He just looked, tentative. He was 22 of 33 for 170 yards, 1 touchdown pass, and no interceptions, which you like, but he ran 9 times. And that decision he made, where he's running and he kind of jumps up in the air, and in a crucial moment, he's getting hit, and he's got a big fumble that kind of turned that game around and got the Patriots right back in it. the Eagles, I think I like you. Like, okay, you got Penny. He's your big free agent signing coming from Seattle. He's your big back. He's a active, inactive. He's a healthy scratch in the game. And then DeAndre Swift, who they bring over from the Lions, a good young player, St. Joe's prep guy, Philly guy. And you think, okay, he's going to get his opportunities now. And he only had 2 touches in the game.
Yeah.
Dallas Goedert had no catches in the game. And
Yep.
you know, you don't want to say they were lucky to get a win, but a win's a win, and you want
I
to
think,
stack the W's. But it was ugly. It was
yeah,
ugly win.
listen, New England shot themselves in the foot several times, right? I mean, they turned the ball over. They could have been right there. They could have won that game. But, to your point, too, with the reps in the preseason and everything, then you know what? Eliminate preseason and now just make this season 18 games, right? I mean, it's like they want to rest these guys, but then we know they're going to be rusty. As the season goes on, though, like I said, I'll tell you, if they can't figure out a way to run the football when they need to run the football, it's not going to be a very soft, easy path like it was. Now, they've got Minnesota. We'll talk about that game for a second, and then we'll recap it on Friday when we do our show. But look, Minnesota's coming off a loss. It's a short week. They're already starting to clamor down there in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, primetime Kurt, here we go. But here's the thing. Minnesota can move the football and they can throw it. If Bradbury's not there, now you weaken the secondary a little bit. There's going to be some opportunities for them to throw the football. And
there's key injuries on the Eagles defense.
Yeah.
Fletcher Cox got a rib. He got Blankenship, the safety, who I thought struggled, quite frankly. He got beat for a touchdown, and then his coverage skills are not the best. And we talked about this in terms of the Eagles. I would attack them. They're mid-level, their linebackers, and their safeties. And then you're losing to Kobe Dean in this
That's
one.
right.
Another, so they have injuries on that defense. They got a short turnaround week, and then you get an angry Minnesota team coming in there. We'll see what Minnesota's able to do. Madison did not do much in terms of replacing Dalvin Cook. And then Kirk Cousins, he was struggling, and you wonder, is he ready to step up in prime time? But we know his record in prime time is not very good, and it's going to be an interesting game, particularly seeing if Justin Jefferson, who had over 150 yards receiving, could take advantage of that injury in that secondary.
How about Washington? New look Washington Commanders. Their defense led the way, 20-16 win over Arizona in a game where, give Arizona credit, was 10-10 at the half. They tacked on a field goal to take the lead. Washington outscored them 10-0 in the fourth quarter to win that game. So, you had a packed house. It was a chippy game. I thought the quarterback showed a little moxie, Sam Howell, I guess you can say efficient. They were able to run just under 100 yards. When their defense is healthy, they can make plays. They got to get a little more tighter with the football. Gibson and Howell had fumbles, but be that as it may, listen, they were able to get to the quarterback and pressure. And we talked about this, right? If they lose this game, it's more of an indictment on Washington than Arizona. And now you blink, Washington has Denver coming up, Buffalo, Philly, but that's a good win for the Commanders to start the season.
It is, and it's not. There's no style points in NFL. I was on another show, and I was telling the guys that you want to get the W, and then in the standings, that's all that matters. But there were some things that kind of scare you in this game in terms of Washington. Xavier Collins had a very good game for the Cardinals. He had an interception, a fumble recovery, and they also Hal was the second most sacked quarterback in week 1. So, but he was efficient, as you said, 19-31, 202 yards, 1 touchdown. I talked about the interception of Collins, but he did a good job in terms of spreading the football around and taking care of business. And when you look on the other side, the Cardinals, they're pretty much what we thought they were. Josh Dobbs, 21 of 30. He only threw for 132 yards in this game. He just could not get the ball down the field, and Hollywood Brown wasn't doing anything. James Conner, 14 rushes for 62 yards. So that defense, as you said, Jack Del Rio has those guys playing, and you have Payne, you have Allen. Hopefully it'll get back Chase Young from that neck injury, but there's a lot of first-round draft picks on that defense, and they're coming for the other team, and they're going to make some plays.
We knew the young quarterbacks were going to struggle. Stroud, Young, Richardson, their teams respectively lost. Falcons beat the Panthers, Jacksonville. Little tough time against Indianapolis. You see Jacksonville. Would we talk about Ridley? Right away, boom, makes his presence known in that one, and then the Texans really didn't put up too much of a fight against the Ravens. More impressive performance, was it Cleveland at home against Cincinnati 24-3, or in a game that I totally miscalculated, the 49ers? I mean, hey, look what happens when you got a friggin' healthy quarterback, folks. All over Pittsburgh on the road, 30-7. I mean, and Purdy and that offense and that defense looked really good, but more impressive performance in your eyes. Browns at home, 49ers on the road.
Yeah, the Browns. That's a good solid win for them. And, ugly, sloppy field. But in Pittsburgh, that was just total domination. I watched a lot of that game, and the Niners look like that team that we thought they were going to be. I actually picked them to go back to the Super Bowl again, and Purdy. You were worrying about that elbow injury, but he's
Yeah.
19-29 and 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he does not turn the football over. So he led 6 scoring drives, and that was incredible. And don't forget about Christian McCaffrey. That long touchdown run with 65 yards was the cherry on top. 22 rushes, 152 yards, 1 touchdown, and then they also have Brandon Ayuk. 8 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was just impressive. For the Steelers, obviously, wasted game for T.J. Watt. 3 sacks and 5 quarterback hits, and had a forced fumble recovery. He was everywhere, and that's what the Niners will have to work on. But that defense is very scary. They limit Kenny Pickett to only 232 passing yards, and he had 2 interceptions, and they only scored 7 points. So I think the Steelers will be a team that's in the mix for AFC North, but you just saw the disparity in terms of these 2 teams, and the Niners are going to be top 5 all season, I believe.
And they were talking about maybe, how did Pickett not suffer a concussion on one of those plays, and he was very ineffective. Joe Burrow, 14-31, 82 yards passing, got sacked twice in really a bad loss for Cincinnati. We talked about Allen with the struggles, Burrow with the struggles. We kind of saw it with some marquee quarterbacks. Listen, Cincinnati's my team coming out of the AFC, man. Maybe you just chalk it up to a bad day at the office. But if they can't run the football, again, just like these teams we're talking about, and they can't open it up, and that offensive line does not protect the quarterback, they are going to be in trouble. And they've got a quick turnaround, man. They've got Baltimore, which we'll talk a little more about later on in the week. And then you had, which I find really interesting when I watch these games on Sunday, because we always talk about defenses should be ahead of some of these offenses. And then you look at a game, Green Bay and Jordan Love, right? And my God, the Packers fans, hopefully they're not tap dancing on Aaron Rodgers, but Green Bay Packers put up 30. And I told the Bears are going to stink. Can we just get out of the way? The Bears are going to be a bad friggin' team this year, man. I know you have a young quarterback, but I thought one of the stories of the weekend, Jordan Love put up some really nice numbers, very efficient, didn't turn the ball over. Offensive line kept him upright, and he threw, I think, 3 touchdown passes in a 38-20 win over Chicago.
Yeah, Burrow, he's got to play enough, and they actually took him out of the game. Like we were talking about, that the Giants should have. They took him out, and they said, you know what, kind of rest up, and he got that big money contract, and hopefully he'll be able to clean it up and play well against Baltimore, and then they have the Rams, who we'll talk about in a minute. But Green Bay, that was impressive as well. I know it's the Bears, as you were saying, and they've kind of owned them in terms of Aaron Rodgers, now Jordan Love. I forget, it's like 12 straight victories over that team, and Love looked very good, 15-27. He had 245 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Him and Dobbs hooking up, and they're 8 for 10 in terms of scoring drives in the red zone. And defensively, they were getting, Rashawn Gary and those guys were getting after Justin Fields, and Justin Fields, he's a good young quarterback, but he still makes too many mistakes, in my opinion, and very tentative in terms of when he's throwing the football. Big acquisition in offseason. DJ Moore only had 2 catches in the game, and then Claypool. There's some guy that's saying he's quit out there. He just was not into the game plan. So going to be a long season, it seems like, for the Bears, and you wonder, is Matt Eberflus the right guy? They brought him over from the Colts, and he's a defensive coordinator, and Justin Fields needs a guy that's offensive minded. So it was a good win for Green Bay. We'll see if they're able to build upon it. Aaron Jones was very good in this game, catching the ball, and he pulled a hamstring on the end of that long run, that TV catch and run. So you got to see if Aaron Jones is able to come back for the Packers. But the Packers may surprise some people, and that was very impressive.
Rams get the win. Raiders got the win. I know Peyton decided to start with the onside kick. They're 0-1. And then the Dolphins and Tua in a really entertaining, high-scoring game. Again, I talked a lot about Tua, put up monster numbers, over 450 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's just Tyreek Hill. You mentioned I want to go over 2,000 yards, 215. So the Dolphins start 1-0. Really nice performance by them. I know we got to start wrapping up. Game ball lackey. Let's start with the game ball. Who'd you give it to?
Sure. The game ball, you had the perfect lead right there. I was trying to debate whether I should give it to the quarterback or the receiver. I ended up giving it to receiver, Miami Dolphins receiver Tariq Hill. He's just dominant. He may get 2,000 yards. I talk about Justin Jefferson. Tariq Hill's right there. 11 receptions, 15 targets, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns, one of which was that 35-yard kind of bomb, and that just broke the game open. Dolphins won a shootout, 36-34 over the stunned host Chargers, who lose another close game. So I give my game ball to Tariq Hill. In terms of the lackey, this guy, there were a couple choices out there. Obviously, everybody was talking about give it to the Tony from the Chiefs. He had such a bad game on Thursday, but I gave it to Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill. It was just awful in a loss to the New Orleans Saints. I think it may be time for that team. Vrabel maybe have to look and turn the page. I knew he has a new general manager there, and they may have to start saying, bring somebody else in, whether it's a Will Levis, the draft pick from this year, or Malik Willis from last year. Tannehill, 26-34 for 47%, only 198 yards passing, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times, and it was a winnable game. They only lost 16-15, but he just could not get it done. They were only 2 of 12 on third down. That just shows you the inefficiency of the Titans. And they'd be smart to just hand the ball off to Henry, because Tannehill, I think he's just lost his fastball, and it may be time for a change there.
Good head coach, but pieces aren't in place. And you're right. You got a very, I think, maybe cooked veteran quarterback. He, of course, is Lloyd Vance, at Lloyd Vance. You catch him during the week, Tuesdays, Football Friday edition of BYP. And don't forget also Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 102.9, The Game, part of the Broad Street South Network as well. The debut show was Monday night. You guys did a fantastic job. So you got the game balls, you got the lackeys, you can catch Lloyd all over the place. Catch him later on the week. We'll start to preview week 2 in the NFL. We'll recap also the Eagles and the Vikings Thursday night football. Always appreciate you jumping on board. A couple moments of BYP, pal.